Yes, Ravens fans, we have some unexpected news coming out of Baltimore, and honestly, nobody saw this coming. The Ravens made a move to strengthen the offensive line, but before things could even get started, everything changed in the blink of an eye. One roster move that looked like it could quietly help this team is suddenly over, and now Baltimore has another decision to make before the season even begins. The big question is, do you think the Ravens should immediately sign another offensive lineman, or are you confident the current depth is enough to get through training camp and the preseason? I want to know where you stand. So leave your opinion in the comments right now. And if you've been a loyal Baltimore Ravens fan for more than 15 years, hit that like button as hard as you can. Only real members of the flock can do that. If possible, also comment, "Go Ravens! Let's go to the Super Bowl!" Alright, now let's talk about Hakeem Adeniji and what his unexpected retirement could mean for Baltimore moving forward. The Baltimore Ravens received an unexpected piece of news when offensive tackle Hakeem Adeniji decided to retire from the NFL after 6 seasons. What makes this story surprising isn't just the retirement itself, but the timing. He had only recently signed with Baltimore, giving the impression that he was preparing for another opportunity to compete for a roster spot and provide valuable depth during training camp and the preseason. Instead, almost immediately after arriving, he made the decision to walk away from football. No official explanation beyond the retirement itself was presented in the information available, so all anyone can do is respect his choice. Every player reaches that point differently. Some leave because of injuries. Others wait until teams no longer call. But in this case, the feeling is that Adeniji wanted to retire on his own terms. Rather than allowing football to decide when his career would end, he made that decision himself, and that deserves respect. From Baltimore's perspective, however, the retirement changes things almost instantly. The Ravens had signed 2 veterans recently. One was wide receiver Chris Moore, and the other was Hakeem Adeniji. Of those 2 moves, adding another offensive lineman seemed like the more obvious football decision. Offensive line depth is something every successful team values, especially over the course of a long NFL season. One encouraging point highlighted in the discussion is that Baltimore appears to be acting much earlier than it did in previous years. Instead of waiting for injuries or problems to appear before looking for help, the Ravens have been proactive in trying to strengthen the roster before the regular season even begins. Even if Adeniji had only been expected to contribute during preseason practices and games, that still represented valuable depth and additional competition. Now that he has retired, that vacancy immediately returns. Because of that, expectations naturally shift toward another move. The belief expressed throughout the discussion is that Baltimore will likely look for another offensive lineman to replace the roster spot that has now opened. Before Adeniji was even signed, there had already been conversation that the Ravens would probably bring in an offensive lineman capable of handling many of the preseason repetitions. That need has not disappeared. If anything, it has become even more obvious. The expectation is simple. The Ravens should sign another offensive lineman, giving themselves additional protection at one of football's most demanding positions. Training camp and preseason require plenty of available blockers, and losing one player this quickly naturally creates another opportunity for someone else. Another interesting point discussed involves Chris Moore. His signing originally left some people confused because wide receiver didn't immediately appear to be the biggest need on the roster. Over time, though, the move started making more sense. Moore isn't expected to arrive and become one of the team's featured receivers. Instead, his projected role is built around depth, reliability, veteran experience, and contributions on special teams. That distinction is important. Comparing Chris Moore to star receivers simply misses the purpose behind the signing. His expected responsibilities are completely different. Baltimore appears to value him as an experienced veteran capable of filling a supporting role while also helping on special teams whenever needed. The conversation then shifted toward another topic Ravens fans always seem to discuss, whether Baltimore should continue adding talent on defense. One suggestion centered around Jadeveon Clowney, with the belief that bringing him back could have benefited the defense through leadership, pass rushing, and run defense. However, circumstances quickly changed because Clowney returned to the Houston Texans. That possibility is now gone, leaving Baltimore to continue building with the players already available. Even while acknowledging Clowney's talent, there remains confidence that the Ravens' defense can still perform at a high level. Another major discussion focused on Lamar Jackson and what many fans continue to see as unfair treatment around the league. Despite his accomplishments, many supporters feel that he continues receiving less respect than he deserves. Several memorable moments were mentioned to support that argument. One was the dramatic victory over Detroit that included a crucial fourth down conversion before Justin Tucker's unforgettable 66-yard field goal. Another example involved the late-game drive against Pittsburgh, where Lamar again put Baltimore in position to compete until the very end. His ability to deliver in critical moments was emphasized repeatedly. The opinion expressed throughout the discussion is that many critics formed opinions about Lamar early in his career and simply refused to change those opinions now, despite everything he has accomplished since entering the NFL. Attention also turned toward the offensive line and the addition of Ethan Pocic. There is optimism that his arrival helps stabilize the center position for the short term while potentially allowing Baltimore to search for its long-term answer through a future draft. The discussion suggested that this approach could give the Ravens flexibility while continuing to compete immediately. Looking further ahead, the conversation explored the future of the roster as a whole. The Ravens have several veteran stars, but every successful organization must constantly prepare for tomorrow while trying to win today. Several younger players were mentioned as possible future contributors at different positions. Teddy Buchanan generated optimism as someone capable of becoming an important linebacker for years to come. Chandler Rivers was discussed as a possible future slot corner with aggressive tackling ability and impressive blitz potential. Other young defensive backs, including T.J. Tampa, Bill Halcone, Robert Longerbeam, and Kean Martin, were also mentioned as players who could eventually compete for larger defensive roles. On the offensive side, Emory Jones received praise for showing encouraging signs during previous opportunities. Although starting positions currently appear occupied, there is confidence that continued development could eventually make him an important contributor along the offensive line. The overall message remained consistent throughout that discussion. Successful organizations never stop developing talent. Free agency, the draft, and player development all work together to keep a roster competitive from one season to the next. There was also excitement surrounding preseason football. For many fans, the upcoming exhibition games represent the first opportunity to see Baltimore's new coaching staff leading the team on the field. Questions remain regarding how much the starters will play, which young players will receive extended opportunities, and which newcomers will begin separating themselves from the competition. Those preseason games often become the first real chance for unknown players to change the direction of their careers. Another interesting topic involved a possible trade target on the defensive line. While the idea of adding another dominant defensive lineman sounded appealing, there was also recognition that Baltimore has already invested significant resources into its defensive front. Because of that, attention may ultimately be better directed towards strengthening other areas if future opportunities arise. Finally, the conversation returned to Lamar Jackson once again, this time from a different perspective. Rather than focusing only on outside criticism, attention shifted toward what Baltimore's new coaching staff could potentially bring out of its franchise quarterback. A different offensive system naturally creates opportunities for growth, adjustment, and new ways to maximize a player's strengths. There is hope that accountability, consistency, and coaching continuity will allow Baltimore to carry its regular season success into the postseason. Instead of changing its identity during the biggest games, the expectation is that the Ravens remain committed to the formula that helps them win throughout the season. When discussing which players may ultimately determine Baltimore's success, several names naturally entered the conversation.